Hey guys, tonight we follow the most glamorous god of the Greek pantheon as he gets spectacularly humbled by a bunch of ungrateful sheep, a cranky mortal king, and his own overinflated ego. Picture this: divine robes bunched up with burrs, celestial hair stuck with hay, and the god of music trying to coax a lamb out of a thorn bush by singing lullabies. You're not dreaming yet, but give it time. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge barefoot down the mountain path, and your feet are already sore. This is what happens when you get banished from Olympus. No lightning bolts, no fiery chariots, just a dry celestial HR note from Zeus himself: you're doing community service. Be useful. No complaints. It had started, as these things often do, with a temper tantrum. You, Apollo, god of the sun, music, prophecy, and bad breakups, had taken offense when Zeus struck down your son, Asclepius. He was getting too good at healing mortals, apparently. Death was losing business. You, in a moment of divine rage, killed the Cyclopes who made Zeus's thunderbolts. Yes. You zapped the blacksmiths. Historically, this wasn't your brightest moment. The Cyclopes were union. Olympian management was not pleased. Historians still argue whether Zeus's punishment was fair or symbolic, but either way, you were promptly demoted. Not exiled, just assigned a humbling mortal job. How delightfully condescending. So here you are, on your way to Thessaly, land of awkwardly quiet hills and kings with names that sound like spellcheck errors. Your new gig? Shepherd. Not poetic metaphor shepherd. Actual shepherd. With sheep. And droppings. And 3 a.m. wake-up calls. A cool wind tugs at your once pristine robes. They're more like a toga bedroll now, stained with 2 days of travel and one badly aimed bird. Your golden sandals, which once glided above marble clouds, now squish in mud. You smell like a hearth, a horse, and a hint of regret. In the distance, smoke curls from a stone house. That's the home of King Admetus, your new mortal employer. Word is, he's actually kind, which is deeply suspicious. You reach the gate and knock. The door creaks open. A tall man with tousled hair and suspiciously clean hands greets you. He's got that awkward "I'm meeting a god but don't want to look starstruck" look. You must be Apollo, he says, trying to smile. We, don't usually get gods applying for jobs. You nod solemnly. I was sent. Apparently I'm here to help. He tries not to laugh. Help? Sure. Do you know how to shear a sheep? You blink. I have shorn light from the heavens. Okay, cool, he says, already turning. You'll love this. We have a ram named Dagger who kicks. And twins who get separation anxiety. You'll figure it out. And with that, your divine internship begins. You're led to a small stone outpost behind the palace. Your quarters. There's hay. A stool. A long wooden crook leaning in the corner like it knows more than you do. No harp. No ambrosia. No chorus of muses. Just you, a drafty window, and a snoring dog named Thistle. Night falls, and sleep comes in brief, itchy waves. You wake before dawn, as the job demands. You open the pen gate and are met with 24 pairs of deeply unimpressed sheep eyes. One bleats in a tone that might be mocking. You clear your throat. I am Apollo, you say, raising your arms. I have ridden the sun across the sky, composed lullabies for kings, and a hoof lands squarely on your foot. Welcome to shepherd life. To be fair, you'd always imagine mortal labor as quaint, even charming. Perhaps a picturesque sunrise. A few sheep. Maybe a song. But real herding? It's chaos. It's mud. It's chasing a you named Myrtle across a shallow creek because she knows you're slow. You try to use your divine voice to command them, but it only makes their ears flick like you're a bothersome breeze. By noon, you've fallen in a ditch, lost one sandal, and been sneezed on by a lamb. At one point, you try to play a soft tune on your lyre, hoping to soothe them. But you forgot you'd strapped it to your belt. The strings are snapped. Sheep do not appreciate broken ballads. Still, the mortals seem entertained. Farmhands giggle from a distance. Someone tosses you a flask of watered wine. For morale, they say. You drink it out of spite. Here's a fun tidbit. Ancient Greek shepherds often carried reed flutes and made up long, sad songs about lost goats and annoying weather. They considered it high art. You, a literal god of music, are beginning to understand why. It's either sing or scream. That night, after another round of chasing Myrtle, who somehow opened the latch again, possibly a demigod, you slump beside Thistle the dog and stare at the stars. You used to live up there. Now you're sore, sunburnt, and considering writing a tragic poem called Ode to Hoof Blisters. A shooting star zips across the sky. It's probably Hermes laughing at you. You sigh and whisper to no one, I used to like that star. Thistle snorts. Probably agreement. You close your eyes. Tomorrow is another day. Another chance to learn sheep names. Another chance to trip into a puddle. Another step in your weird redemption arc. Because here's the thing, gods don't usually get second chances. Or dirty. Or lessons in humility. But maybe, just maybe, this isn't about punishment. Maybe it's a badly disguised, divine joke. And you, Apollo, radiant and ridiculous, are the punchline. You wake to the sound of sheep flatulating. That's your alarm clock now. Sunrise stains the fields in a watercolor blend of pink and orange, and for a brief moment, you forget your circumstances. The air is crisp, the grass dew-kissed, and birds are chirping like they didn't witness you faceplant into a briar patch yesterday. You stretch. Something pops in your divine back. That's new. Then the smell hits. You trudge out to the field where the flock awaits, or rather, loiters aggressively. Sheep have no concept of personal space or respect for celestial authority. One nudges your knee. Another sniffs your robe like it's judging your laundry situation. A third headbutts you in what may be affection, protest, or both. Just as you're mentally preparing for another full day of being herded by the herd, you hear hoofbeats. Not sheep. Horses. Multiple. And behind them, clinking armor, dust clouds, and the unmistakable scent of formal political nonsense. King Admetus is arriving with his full entourage, draped in fine cloth, smugly radiant, and clearly ready to put on a show. You squint against the light as he dismounts, waiting like your old drinking buddies. Morning, Apollo. Slept well, he asks, ignoring the fact that you're standing in something definitely not due. I was awakened by a goat, you reply, flatly. He chuckles. Ah, you're settling in, then. Behind him, a servant unrolls a scroll and begins reading your official terms of service. Zeus, ever the bureaucrat, made sure your humiliation came with paperwork. You are to serve King Admetus of Thessaly, the man drones, for 1 mortal year. Duties include the care and tending of livestock, pasture rotation, and assistance during seasonal migrations. No divine powers shall be used without explicit permission. You raise a hand. Define explicit? Admetus laughs harder than necessary. It means no cheating, son boy. You resist the urge to smite the scroll reader. Just barely. Once the parchment is tucked away and the formalities are over, Admetus leans closer. Look, I know this isn't exactly Olympus, but if you do the job well, I'll make sure the year goes quickly. No surprises. Just sheep, routine, and a little wine. Historians still argue whether Admetus truly understood the weight of hiring a god, or if he simply saw an opportunity for eternal bragging rights. Either way, he didn't ask too many questions, and you were in no position to demand better housing. He claps you on the back. The herders meet in the south pasture every morning. They'll show you the ropes. Or, in your case, how not to trip over them. You give a regal nod and begin your march across the field. The sheep follow, because that's what they do, though you suspect one is only coming along to chew your sleeve again. The south pasture is a humble stretch of land peppered with scrubby trees and sleepy goats that look as though they've transcended time. 3 mortal shepherds wait for you there, Myron, the cheerful one missing 3 teeth, Daphne, who carries a sling and 0 patience, and Ariston, who might be 90, or already a ghost. Ah, the god, Myron says with a grin. Heard you got downgraded to wool manager. You offer your hand like a diplomat. Apollo, god of light, music, prophecy. And sheep now, Daphne interrupts. Come on, we'll start with the rotation path. Thus begins your crash course in mortal logistics. Turns out, shepherding isn't just chasing animals and yelling. It's meticulous. Grazing routes must be planned so the fields don't get overworked. You must track individual sheep health. They have names. Some are picky eaters. Others refuse to walk near rocks for no reason. You try to memorize them all. Myrtle, the escape artist. Bubo, who snores standing up. Dagger, who will absolutely bite your kneecap given the chance. You attempt to charm them with music again, humming an old hymn that once lulled kings to sleep. Myrtle yawns. Bubo belches. Dagger headbutts a tree. In ancient Thessaly, shepherds often carved runes into trees to keep track of flock movements and mark safe grazing spots. Myron shows you some of the older ones, weathered, moss-covered, and eerily precise. You try carving your own symbol. The crook slips. Now there's a crooked sun that looks more like a squashed frog. By midday, your sandals are caked in mud and something else you don't investigate. You take a break under a cypress. Daphne joins you, chewing on a reed like it owes her money. So, what's a god really like? She asks. You shrug. Lonely. Overrated. Occasionally majestic. She laughs. Well, welcome to dirt and fleas. You lean back against the tree and exhale. Surprisingly, the wind smells good. Like thyme and warm earth. And under all the indignity, a strange sense of rhythm starts to form. The day has beats, feeding, walking, napping, cursing. You are still sore, still irritated, but maybe, just maybe, you're learning something. That night, you return to your humble quarters with the memory of sun-warm fur against your hand. You dream of hooves and music, of mountain winds and far-off temples. You dream of the sun rising without your permission. Because here's the thing no one talks about, the world keeps turning, even without your touch. The sheep graze. The sky burns orange. And somewhere far above, the constellations wait for you to earn your way back. But not tonight. Tonight, you're just a guy with a staff, a sunburn, and a goat that keeps staring at you like it knows your tragic backstory. By the time the third morning dawns, you have achieved what can only be described as rustic acceptance. Your robe, once a billowing cascade of divine fabric, is now cinched at the waist with rope and stained with things you no longer question. Your once golden hair has a permanent cowlick from sleeping on straw. And worst of all, you've stopped noticing the smell. You wake just before sunrise. Thistle the dog snores like he's guarding the gates of Hades, and outside, the sheep are already bleating, agitated by nothing in particular. You stretch, crack your neck, and grab your crook like it's a ceremonial spear. Today's assignment, meet the king. Again. Apparently, Admetus has a new system for grazing schedules. The man is enthusiastic about shepherding in the way only someone who doesn't do it daily can be. You make your way toward the palace courtyard, a modest but well-kept cluster of white limestone and potted vines. Mortals bustle about with baskets and ledgers. You get a few double takes. One small child bows dramatically and asks if you can light her candle with your finger. You oblige, of course. It sputters out 2 seconds later. Classic. Admetus appears, radiant as always in a tunic that somehow manages to stay clean. He claps his hands. Apollo! There you are. I've had an idea. What if we rotate the flock between the western and northern pastures every 2 days instead of 3? You blink. Do you know how long it takes Myrtle to cross a pasture? She stops to smell every rock. He waves off your concern. Efficiency. It's the future. You nod politely and mentally plan your next 3 days of myrtle wrangling. Now here's something you didn't expect. You're starting to like Admetus. Not in the immortal camaraderie forged by battle way. More like the mortal equivalent of a charming mess who tries too hard and bribes you with wine. He's young, idealistic, and surprisingly good at remembering sheep names. He asks you real questions about music, stars, prophecy, and then actually listens even when your answers veer into existential rambling. He also has an annoying habit of bringing up your past glory mid-sentence. Hey, Apollo, he says over lunch, tearing a loaf of bread. Is it true you once turned a guy into a flower? You chew slowly. That was Hyacinthus. And it was more of a memorial gesture. He was hit by a discus. Tragic. We had a goat named Hyacinthus once. Died in a freak fence accident. Think there's a pattern? You raise an eyebrow. Want to test it? He laughs. Nope. Too handsome to be a flower. Historians still argue whether Admetus truly respected Apollo or just found him entertaining. Either way, the king treated you like an honored guest with a very smelly day job. Over the next few days, you get a tour of the palace grounds, not because you ask, but because Admetus keeps inventing reasons. The temple garden. The wine cellar. The secret stone bench where the view just hits differently. It's nice. Quiet. The kind of peace you didn't know you missed. Then he shows you the royal stables. Now this is where your pride stirs. Sleek Thessalian horses, tall and perfectly groomed, with manes that shimmer like polished obsidian. You step closer. One snorts and steps back. Even they know you've been with sheep, Admetus teases. You narrow your eyes. You smell like sandalwood and delusion. He grins. Come on. I'll show you my favorite. The horse in question is a pale mare with one blue eye and one green. Her name is Syra, and she is the only creature in this entire realm who greets you without suspicion. She noses your palm and lets you scratch behind her ears. For the first time in weeks, you feel dignified. I used to ride a chariot across the sky, you murmur to her. Cyrus sneezes on your chest. Perfect, you say. Later that evening, you help Admetus host a tiny feast for the shepherds, something about honoring the equinox and appeasing obscure field spirits. You all sit around a long wooden table under hanging oil lamps. There's goat cheese, flatbread, olives, and wine. The mood is warm, blurry, and full of bad jokes. Myron tries to teach you a mortal drinking song. Daphne corrects your lyrics with loud claps. Ariston just mumbles about the sheep uprising of 42. At some point, you laugh. Like, really laugh. No echo of divinity. No dramatic thunder. Just a guy in dirty robes howling at a dumb pun involving satyrs and sandals. It's disarming. Grounding. You feel mortal. And that's when it hits you. Not lightning, though you wouldn't put that past Zeus. It's the realization that you are being reshaped. Not destroyed. Reforged. This isn't punishment for punishment's sake. It's correction. The way you correct a chord. The way a sculptor refines the jawline of a statue. Painful. Necessary. Subtle. At the edge of the feast, Admetus raises his cup. To Apollo, the most cooperative shepherd we've ever had. May your feet toughen and your patience multiply. You raise yours. To Admetus. May your goats stay in fences and your wine stay cool. The cups clink. You drink. And the stars above blink in silent approval. That night, as you lie in your scratchy bed, Thistle curled beside you like a furry potato, you hear the faint hum of music, not lyre, not flute. Just the rhythm of a world turning without gods needing to meddle. You smile into the darkness. Maybe shepherding isn't eternal. But tonight, it's enough. You're starting to think the sheep are conspiring. It's been weeks now, possibly months. Time loses its shape when your daily highlight is successfully counting to 30 without losing track of Myrtle. And yet, somehow, these animals still look at you like you're an unwanted intern in their woolly bureaucracy. The trouble begins, as it often does, with Bubo. You recognize his bleat from 50 paces now. It's the sound of nasal complaint, like a goose with sinus issues. Today, he refuses to move. You poke him gently with your crook. Nothing. You whistle. He blinks. You try humming a lullaby that once charmed a sea nymph out of a coma. He lies down. The rest of the flock, sensing weakness, scatters. Some head toward the olive grove. Two attempt to scale a hillock and then slide down dramatically. Myrtle launches herself into a shallow stream and bleats like she's discovered Atlantis. You stand, waist deep in sheep insubordination, and finally yell, I lit the first star. I wrote the ode to dawn. A sheep sneezes on your knee. This, clearly, is personal. You regroup. You try logic. You try rhythm. You even try bribery, offering clover in one hand and your dignity in the other. The sheep remain unmoved. Thistle, your loyal canine assistant, lies in the sun and scratches his ear. Absolutely useless. There's an odd comfort in the repetition, though. You've learned the patterns. Bubo stalls at water. Myrtle bolts near birds. Dagger only moves when you're not watching. Each sheep is a flawed, ridiculous soul in their own right, and in some twisted way, they remind you of the gods. Poseidon, definitely a dagger type. Powerful, uncooperative, probably bites. Now, One shepherding fact you didn't expect to matter: ancient Greek sheep weren't just meat and wool machines. They had reputations, families, dynasties. Farmers bragged about lineage like modern folks boast about wine vintages or Olympic medals. You find yourself sketching tiny family trees in the dirt, noting how Bubo's left ear twitches just like his father supposedly did, or how Myrtle's flock defiance must come from her mother, a sheep named Lightning. Lightning was apparently once stolen by pirates. The sheep, not the mother. Or maybe both. Historians still debate whether pirates stealing livestock was common or just something bards added to spice up otherwise sleepy stories. Either way, it explains Myrtle's attitude. She probably has tales of sea spray in her bloodline. By mid-afternoon, you're sitting on a hill, watching the flock finally munch grass in something resembling peace. The sun warms your back, the wind tugs gently at your sleeves, and for the first time in days, you breathe without thinking about hoof injuries or misplaced feed bins. And that's when it happens. You hear laughter. Not the hearty kind. The echoing kind. The "I am a primordial being and you're doing this wrong" kind. You freeze. A nymph, at least 3, actually, peek from behind a cluster of olive trees, giggling behind delicate fingers. Their eyes shimmer, their hair floats unnaturally in the air, and their expressions are full of divine mischief. "Is that Apollo?" one whispers theatrically. "The radiant lord of music? He's got burrs in his hair." You touch your head. You do have burrs in your hair. Probably from this morning's Myrtle incident. "I see sheep," says another. "Do you think he's composing a new symphony? Symphony in Ba minor, perhaps?" You sigh, stand, and face them with what's left of your composure. "Yes, yes," mock the fallen god. Very original. They titter like schoolchildren. One tosses a pedal in your direction. "We thought you'd be doing, important things. Predicting plagues. Inspiring oracles." "I am doing something important," you say, voice low but sharp. "I'm learning." A pause. Then, "Learning what?" "Sheep behavior?" You nod solemnly. "Sheep psychology. Quite complex, really." They collapse in laughter. You let them finish. You're too tired to smite anyone today. When they finally flutter away like flower-scented rumors, you sit back down with a weary exhale. The sheep, unfazed, continue grazing. Bubo lets out a suspicious fart. This is your audience now. You hum a low tune under your breath. Something simple. Shepherd's music. Not the grand orchestral things you used to send echoing through Delphi's marble halls. This one's slower, rooted. A tune for walking. For watching. For listening to what doesn't speak. To your surprise, the sheep turn. One by one, they start ambling toward you. Myrtle in front. Dagger reluctantly. Even Bubo, wheezing. They surround you, settling in a semicircle like disciples at a very peculiar sermon. You keep playing. By the time the tune finishes, they're all lying down. Calm. Still. Peaceful. And there it is. That flicker of power, not divine. Not cosmic. But real. Earning trust without summoning lightning. Creating harmony without a golden chariot. You lie back in the grass, the sun dipping lower, casting long, sleepy shadows over the hills. A soft breeze rustles the olive trees, and for a second, it sounds like the nymphs are still laughing, but fainter now. Less mocking. Almost admiring? Or maybe that's just your tired brain. You watch a hawk circle lazily above, feel thistles settle at your side, and close your eyes. The sheep bleat occasionally. The earth hums beneath you. And overhead, the constellations wait, quietly shifting. You don't miss Olympus. Not today. You're standing on a rocky ledge at dawn, overlooking a pasture that still smells like last night's sheep rebellion. And you're whistling. Or, trying to. It's less silver-tongued shepherd calling his loyal flock and more soggy teapot with trust issues. Your lips are pursed. Your brow is furrowed. Air escapes with a sad, warbling wheeze that scares away two birds and makes Myrtle raise an eyebrow. Yes, sheep can raise eyebrows. Especially judgmental ones. You try again. Still nothing. This, apparently, is the next stage of your mortal education, whistling. According to Daphne, who has taken it upon herself to personally coach you through the indignities of shepherd life, this is a critical skill. If you can't whistle, she'd said, arms crossed, you'll never control a pasture flock. It's how you warn them. Call them. Even lull them. You've replied, I'm the god of music. I don't whistle, I compose in Dorian mode. She'd rolled her eyes. Cool. But can you do this? Then she'd unleashed a shrill, two-tone whistle that made all 20 sheep stop and look at her like she'd just announced free olives. So here you are, lips puckered, cheeks puffed, whistling like a broken pan flute. It's humbling. Again. Eventually, after spitting on yourself twice and summoning only Bubo, who may have misunderstood your call as an invitation to eat your sandals, you give up and flop into the grass. Whistling is harder than prophecy. Whistling, apparently, separates the gods from the goatherds. You stare up at the sky. No clouds. Just endless blue. Back in Olympus, this would be the hour your golden chariot blazed across the horizon. Your name would be whispered across cities. Priests would sprinkle oil on statues of your perfect, carved marble face. Now, your legacy is a sheep who thinks your crook is edible. You pull yourself upright and turn to the next humiliating task on Daphne's training agenda, crook spinning. It sounds elegant, doesn't it? Maybe you imagine yourself twirling the shepherd's staff like a baton, commanding awe from sheep and mortals alike. In reality, it's the art of not bonking yourself in the face while trying to adjust your grip with sweaty hands. You give it a go. The crook flips halfway, smacks your shin, and lands with a thunk. Thistle gives you a slow blink. The kind that says, I've seen you play 10 instruments at once and you still can't do this? But here's the thing, ancient shepherds really did practice crook spinning. It wasn't just flair, it helped with agility, direction giving, even fending off the occasional overly confident goat or wayward satyr. Plus, it looked cool. And looking cool, even in wool-stained robes, still matters to you. A little. You try again. And again. And finally, the staff makes a slow, clumsy rotation in your hand. Once. Twice. Then you trip on a rock and faceplant into a patch of time. Progress. Later that day, as the sun rises and the sheep meander across the field like sentient clouds, you begin to accept something quietly horrifying. You are improving. Not dramatically. Not divinely. But in mortal, aching, sun-chapped increments. You've learned which sheep nip. You've learned how to spot a sick ewe by her gait. You've started using whistles that don't sound like distress calls. And you've even, once, gotten Dagger to turn without threats or bribery. Still, the days blur. Each morning is a repeat of the last, and you begin to see how eternity, in its own way, isn't just reserved for gods. Mortals live loops too, smaller, messier ones. but loops nonetheless. Then, one evening, you're called back to the palace. You wash your hands. Change into a robe that only smells slightly of goat. Brush the worst of the burrs out of your hair. Thistle walks you halfway, then disappears to chase a shadow. Inside, Admetus greets you with wine and a scroll. "I've had a thought," he says, which is never reassuring. You take the scroll, open it, and read, "Festival of the First Fleece." He grins. "We're starting a new tradition. To honor the flock. And you, of course. You'll perform." You blink. Perform what? A sheep chorus? A song? A poem? A story? I don't know, something. You're Apollo. People expect magic. You sigh. "I'm currently Apollo, moderately competent livestock manager." He shrugs. "That's still better than most poets." Historians still argue whether the festival of the first fleece ever became a recurring Thessalian event or was simply an elaborate excuse for Admetus to throw an experimental party. What's certain is this: the next night, under lanterns strung from olive trees, you stand barefoot on a wooden platform, lyre in hand, crook by your side. The people gather. Some curious. Some skeptical. One toddler is wearing a hat made of sheep fluff. You play. It's not your usual style. No divine crescendos. No orchestral flair. Just a gentle rhythm, plucked from weeks of sunrises and grazing and the quiet, constant company of creatures who never asked for your story but accepted your presence anyway. You sing about Myrtle's escape attempts. About Bubo's tragic love affair with a salt lick. About Daphne's deadly whistle and Ariston's ghost stories. You even sing about Admetus's terrible ideas and Thistle's love for fig rinds. People laugh. Softly. Then louder. And when the last note fades, no one claps right away. They just sit there, blinking. Maybe surprised. Maybe soothed. Then, slowly, applause begins, uneven, awkward, but real. That night, under the stars, Admetus clasps your shoulder and says, "You made them feel something." You nod. So did Myrtle. She pooped during verse 2. You walk back to your quarters in silence, lyre slung over your back. Thistle meets you at the gate with a stick in his mouth. You take it and spin it like a crook. Twice. No bruises. Something in the night air hums, faint and familiar. You realize it's your voice, still echoing gently in the hearts of people who think gods belong in temples, not pastures. You smile. You sleep. It begins with a shimmer. Just a flicker of something shiny, out of place among the shaggy backs of your thoroughly mortal sheep. You squint. Nope. Still there. A glint, like firelight on metal, or moonlight on something not remotely ovine. You drop your olive crust in the grass and step carefully toward the anomaly. The sheep part lazily around you, bleating their usual complaints. Myrtle gives you a look that says, "Don't involve me in this," and Resume's eating a twig she's absolutely not supposed to have. And then you see it. Dagger, your most violent, emotionally unavailable sheep, is gleaming. Specifically, his wool is gleaming. You narrow your eyes. "Have you always been gold?" you murmur. He snorts. Headbutts a nearby tree. Classic Dagger. But now that the sun's angled just right, you can see it clearly, a subtle shimmer dancing across his coat. Not full-on Midas touch territory, but definitely more sparkle than standard wool. You kneel. Run your hand along his back. The fleece feels warm, unnaturally so, and smooth like polished bronze. You blink, once. Twice. Well, you whisper, that's suspicious. Now, for the history nerds in the audience, yes, this is where things get mythologically messy. See, golden sheep, or more specifically, golden rams, aren't unheard of in Greek lore. There's the famous one from the story of Phrixus and Helle, the same ram that flew them to safety and eventually became the Golden Fleece. That ram was sacrificed, turned into a constellation, and its fleece became the object of Jason's little nautical scavenger hunt. But here's the thing historians still debate, was that Golden Fleece one of a kind, or just the most popular of many golden rams floating around ancient myth? Fringe scrolls, often dismissed as rural gossip or drunk Orphic poetry, hint at others. Hidden descendants. Echoes of celestial wool tucked away in obscure flocks. You look at Dagger again. He blinks like a goat with secrets. The next day, you attempt an experiment. You gather the flock near the river, brush Dagger's fleece, and let the sun hit him at different angles. The shimmer intensifies. Sheep nearby inch closer. Thistle whines. Myrtle steps back like she knows a quest plot when she sees one. And then it happens. A low thrum. Not a sound exactly. More a vibration. Like your lyre's lowest string, plucked by an invisible finger. You feel it in your chest, your feet, the earth. Dagger sneezes. You fall backward into the grass, heart pounding. Congratulations. You've adopted a magical sheep. Naturally, you decide not to tell Admetus. Not right away. The man once tried to install sundials indoors because he liked the aesthetic. You don't want him declaring himself king of the golden wool before you figure out whether this is a blessing or a very shiny curse. Instead, you begin observing Dagger. Closely. He doesn't float. Doesn't speak in tongues. Doesn't manifest storm clouds, though he does continue to kick you at least once a day, just to assert dominance. But every now and then, especially during sunset, he gives off that soft glow again. And nearby animals seem calmer. Even Bubo stops wheezing. One night, you try playing your lyre while sitting next to him. The melody comes out smoother than usual. Richer. Like the notes are gilded. You're not saying the sheep is musically gifted, but something's happening. And it's not just music. You start dreaming in gold. Swirling landscapes. Rivers like molten sun. Voices calling from orchards made of bronze. And always, at the edge of your vision, the outline of a ram, hooves never touching the ground. By morning, the dreams fade, but their warmth lingers. You write a song. You don't mean to, but it spills out of your fingers one morning as you watch Dagger napping like a smug paperweight. The melody is unlike anything you've made since Olympus. It's not lofty or ceremonial. It's grounded. Earthy. Woven with threads of wool and warmth and hidden light. You hum it during your walks. You teach it to the flock, not with words, but with rhythm. Eventually, they respond. The flock moves as one when you play it. Even Myrtle. Even Dagger. You, Apollo, are conducting a sheep orchestra. Daphne notices. You've done something weird, she says one morning, chewing on a reed and eyeing the flock's eerie coordination. Are you using magic? Divine charisma, you offer. Very subtle. Is that gold on Dagger? Sunshine. Reflection. She narrows her eyes. You deflect by showing off your newly improved crookspin. 2 full rotations. No bruises. Small victories. One evening, While everyone is distracted at the village market, you take Dagger up the hill alone. The sky is brushed with lavender, the air smells like rain that changed its mind, and you feel the moment settle like a hush. You place your hand on his back. "Where are you from?" you whisper. He turns his head, ears twitching. And then, without fanfare or warning, he begins to walk. Not in panic. Not aimless. Deliberate. He leads you further up the hill, toward a cluster of wind-worn stones. You recognize one, an old shrine, long forgotten. Overgrown with moss. Its carving nearly eroded. You brush aside the vines. A ram. Carved into the stone. Wings at its sides. Stars on its fleece. You exhale. Of course. This land has old memory. Older than kings. Older than your punishment. It remembers myths not written down. And Dagger, grumpy, violent, golden Dagger, is part of that memory. He curls beside the stone and sleeps. You sit next to him and watch the last light disappear behind the trees. Tonight, you don't feel like a shepherd. You feel like a witness. Rain arrives before dawn. Not the soft, poetic kind either, the kind that gives artists something to mope about and nymphs an excuse to dance in circles. No, this is angry rain. Thick, sideways blasting, thigh-soaking rain. The sort of storm that sounds like Zeus sneezed directly onto the continent. You wake to it pounding your little outpost roof like it's trying to punch through the tiles. Thistle is curled beneath your cot, muttering in his sleep. You roll over, still half dreaming of golden sheep and ancient shrines, and for a brief, hopeful second, you think, maybe the sheep will handle themselves today. They do not. The door slams open, blown by wind, and with it comes Daphne, drenched, scowling, and holding a very wet myrtle under one arm like a misbehaving scroll. Storm spooked the flock, she snaps. They broke the fence. You sit up. Define broke. Like it's no longer a fence. Just decorative firewood now. You groan, swing your legs over the side of the cot, and begin mentally preparing for what historians might generously call the day Apollo sprinted after sheep through a thunderstorm like a lunatic in a bathrobe. Within minutes, you're in the fields, robe tied high around your knees, crook in hand, soaked to the bone. The rain hasn't let up, it's just evolving. Now there's wind involved, slapping your face every time you turn toward the bleeding. Myrtle is somewhere in the olive grove. Bubo has vanished. Dagger, presumably, has appointed himself ruler of higher ground. Thunder cracks overhead, and you mutter, that better not be commentary, Zeus. Lightning answers. Not close, but pointed. Shepherding in bad weather is one of those rare things that mortals and gods alike can agree is miserable. Ancient farmers used to say that sheep were rain magnets, that a single drop turned even the calmest flock into panicked idiots with hooves. You are now living that proverb. You find Myrtle first. She's standing under an olive tree, completely dry, chewing on its lowest branch with smug contentment. How, you ask, rain pouring down your nose, do you look like you just had a spa day? She sneezes in your face. After corralling her back toward the stone paddock, Reed, dragging her while being headbutted every 5 steps, you set out again. You stumble over Bubo in a muddy ditch. He's upside down and wheezing like a broken flute. Oh, for the love of... You haul him out, set him upright, and guide him back using the power of slow, firm nudges and unbroken eye contact. The rest of the sheep are scattered across the lower hills. You and Daphne divide and conquer, though she does most of the conquering while you mostly shout things like, "Come back," and "That is not your hill." Eventually, you reach the stream. Dagger is there. Of course he is. He's standing in the middle of it, defiantly. Water rushes around his hooves. His fleece, still faintly golden beneath the mud, shines like a very disappointed coin. He refuses to move. You step into the stream, soaked to your thighs. Thunder growls. Dagger, you say, low and slow, I have chased you for miles. I have fed you by hand. I once sang you a lullaby so pretty a nymph cried. He stares. I am Apollo. A gust of wind slaps you with your own robe sash. You take a deep breath. Then, you hum. Not loudly. Not showy. Just that simple, earthen tune, the one born weeks ago under the olive trees, with sheep at your feet and warm bread in your hands. You hum the rhythm of the pasture, the hills, the flock's strange dance. And gradually, the storm seems to hush. The rain softens. Dagger blinks. Snorts. Then, with a huff, he steps out of the stream and walks past you like it was his idea. You exhale. Thank you for your immense cooperation. By nightfall, the fence is fixed. The sheep are safe. And you're so soaked, wrung out, and sore you consider just collapsing face down in the straw and becoming part of the bedding. Admetus visits, bringing honey cakes and half a jug of wine. Bad day, he asks, noticing your mud mask and haunted expression. I chased a glowing sheep through a river while being personally insulted by the sky. He nods, pours you a drink. You're adapting. That's what this is. Adapting to what, exactly? He grins. Reality. Rain. Rebellion. The usual. You both sit in silence for a while, listening to the rhythmic tap of leftover droplets on the windowsill. Thistle snores. The fire crackles. Somewhere outside, Myrtle is probably plotting a fourth escape. Eventually, Admetus sighs. You know, you've changed. You glance at him. Yes, I smell worse. No, I mean really changed. You used to walk like you own the wind. Now you walk like someone who's stepped in go dumb twice and knows better. You smirk. Character development. Mortals love it. Especially in gods, he replies, quieter now. There's something in his voice, an edge of uncertainty, like he's been thinking about something too long but hasn't said it yet. You wait. He hesitates. Have you ever thought, maybe this isn't just punishment? You blink. You too? I mean, what if the gods sent you here not just to humble you, but to see something you couldn't see before? You pause. Stare into your wine. Sheep? He laughs. No. Us. Mortals. Our rhythm. Our world. You nod slowly. You've seen storms from Olympus, giant, sweeping things with drama and lightning and theatrical chaos. But here, they're personal. They soak you to the bone, they ruin your day, and you survive them anyway. They make you cold, wet, angry, and somehow, better. You finish your wine. The room glows soft. You're tired. Tomorrow, the sheep will need you again. But tonight? You've survived the storm. All of it. You're asleep in your cot, drooling slightly onto your arm, when a pebble hits the window. Ping! You blink, groggy, tangled in blankets and dog limbs. Thistle huffs and shifts beside you. Another pebble. Ping! It's still dark. You roll over and grumble, if this is Myrtle again, I swear by every constellation I've ever named. Ping! You groan, drag yourself up, and open the window. Admetus stands below with a lantern, wrapped in a cloak, looking absurdly awake for this hour. You busy? You blink at him. It's barely past moonrise. Perfect. Let's go. You squint. Go, where? He grins. You'll see. Dress warm. The man has the enthusiasm of a child with a secret and the schedule of someone who's never wrestled a sheep at dawn. Still, curiosity wins. And besides, your sleep lately has been filled with increasingly weird dreams, golden staircases, floating sheep, celestial concerts attended by cows. Might as well shake things up. You throw on your thickest tunic and follow him into the night. The hills are quiet. The stars sharp. The path leads east, where the landscape softens into fields that shimmer with dew. You trudge silently, cloak pulled tight, until the lantern light flickers off something ahead. A temple. Small. Modest. Tucked against a slope like a secret waiting to be remembered. You tilt your head. I thought this one was abandoned. It was, Admetus replies. Until this week. You approach. The stone is worn but solid. Vines curl along the base, and the door creaks with ancient reluctance. Inside, it smells of time, dust, and faintly, of music. And then you see it. A new statue. Carved roughly. Clearly mortal-made. It's you. Well, not quite. Not the grand, golden version of you with flowing locks and burning eyes. This one is simpler. Rougher. Your robes are crooked. Your expression? Focused. A bit tired. There's a crook in your hand. And next to you, small, delicate, stands a sheep. Not just a sheep. Dagger. You step closer. A candle burns at the base. Offerings sit beside it, a crust of bread. A carving of a lyre. A braid of wool tied in golden thread. You look at Admetus. What is this? He shrugs. They built it. The people. Said it felt right. You've helped them, Apollo. Not with plagues or oracles. With life. With rhythms. With a song for the everyday. You stare at the statue. The flickering light makes the eyes shimmer. Historians still argue whether Apollo was ever worshipped specifically in his role as a shepherd god. Most evidence points to temples dedicated to his music, prophecy, and healing. But here, in this valley, far from marble pillars and high priests, something new is forming. You lean down and touch the braid of wool. It's soft, warm, mortal, and strangely holy. Admetus speaks again. They don't need miracles. They just need to know that God sees them. That we understand. You murmur, we didn't. Not really. He nods. The two of you sit in silence for a while. Outside, the wind picks up. Inside, the candle burns low. You can hear a soft bleat in the distance, probably Myrtle, confused about being excluded from a religious experience. Eventually, you say, you know this wasn't meant to happen. What wasn't? This, you gesture. Statues. Temples. Reverence. I was exiled. Sent here to learn humility, not to get a fan club. He chuckles. You didn't try for it, though. That's the difference. You exhale. So what do I do now? He shrugs. Same as always. Show up. Walk the hills. Count the sheep. Tell us stories. You leave the temple just before dawn. The sky is a pale lavender, and mist rolls across the fields like spilled silver. You pause on the rise, looking down at the pasture. The flock is already stirring. Dagger stands at the edge, watching you. Later that morning, you share the story of the shrine with Daphne and Myron. Ariston just nods like he's known the whole time. They listen quietly. Then Myron says, "Do we leave offerings now? Like celery?" You smirk. "Only if you want your next cheese wheel to explode." From that day, the shrine becomes something woven into routine. A place of pause. Of warmth. Mortals stop by to hum songs, leave bits of wool, say small thanks. No thunder. No glowing visions. Just attention. That's what you've come to understand. Being a god was always about distance. Grand gestures. Abstract awe. But now you see the beauty in the close-up moments. The daily rituals. The shared bread. The whispered prayers that sound more like conversations. That night, Thistle curls up beside your cot with a little contented grunt. You lie back, listening to the wind whisper outside. You think about the statue. About how it didn't try to make you look powerful, just present. Maybe that's the point. Not to be feared, but to be known. The morning begins like most do lately. You wake before the sun, Thistle whines for breakfast, and Bubo has somehow gotten himself tangled in a grapevine again. You're untangling him, muttering prayers not fit for temple inscription, when you notice it, movement on the far hill. Not sheep. Not goats. Not Daphne either. People. Strangers. Two of them, cloaked, moving slow but with purpose. Travelers, maybe. Or merchants. The nearest road isn't far, and occasionally people get turned around, especially if they've been hitting the wine early. You squint. Something about the way they walk, like they're watching for something. Or someone. You don't love that. You finish freeing Bubo, who immediately trots off like nothing happened, whistle for Thistle, and make your way across the field. The morning mist is lifting, curling off the grass like the breath of some half-asleep earth god. You walk quickly, crook in hand, the sheep parting around you like lazy clouds. As you approach, the two figures pause. One raises a hand in greeting. The other doesn't move. "Good morning," the first says. Their voice is smooth, educated, with a vague accent you can't quite place. "Lovely flock." You nod slowly. "Can I help you?" "We're travelers," the second figure says. "Pilgrims, of a sort. We heard about a shrine." "A new one." Your jaw tightens. "The shrine." "Funny," you say casually, "not many people outside the valley would know about that." The first figure smiles, and it's the kind of smile that knows more than it should. "The gods move in mysterious ways," they reply. You stare. Something prickles at the base of your neck. That old divine sense, the one that stayed quiet while you fed sheep and fumbled crook tricks, suddenly flares. These aren't ordinary travelers. You tilt your head. "Who sent you?" They exchange a glance. "We serve Olympus," says the first one. "We were sent to observe. To report." "Of course." You take a step back. "Spies?" "Observers," they correct gently. You've stirred attention, Apollo. Again. The other gods want to know what you're becoming. You snort. A shepherd with better than average musical skills and a very judgmental sheep. The second one smiles. And yet you're being worshipped again. That's not part of the sentence. You cross your arms. I didn't ask for that. But you accepted it, the first replies. You let them build the shrine. I didn't burn it down, if that's what you mean. They glance at each other again, then back at you. Word is reaching the temples. Delphi, Thebes, even Rhodes. People are talking. Not about your chariot. Not about your wrath. About your presence. You blink. You make it sound like a problem. It's a deviation, one says. It's a threat, the other adds. There it is. The real reason they're here. Olympus is twitchy. They always have been. Gods like control, and the moment someone doesn't follow the script, well, someone sends observers. Historians still argue how much Olympus monitored the lives of its exiled gods. Most agree that divine exiles were usually left alone, out of sight, out of mind. But when those exiles start attracting prayers again, that's when the sky starts paying attention. You lift your crook. Not threateningly, but with purpose. This flock's got 29 sheep and one very pushy ram. If you're here to interfere, I recommend starting with him. They glance behind you. Dagger stands on a rise, gleaming faintly in the morning light. Watching. Always watching. We're not here to interfere, says one of them. Not yet. We were sent to advise caution. You arch a brow. Or what? The second one doesn't smile. Or you remind Olympus why they punished you in the first place. That lands. Hard. You stand silently for a long moment. The wind shifts. The sheep bleat somewhere behind you. A bird calls overhead. Finally, you speak. I've done everything they asked. I've lived humbly. I've worked. I've learned. I've bled for this flock. The first nods. And in doing so, you've become something else. You shake your head. Not else. Just more. The two strangers exchange another look. Then they both bow, slight, respectful. We've delivered the message, one says. Take care, Apollo. And just like that, they vanish into the mist. No flash of light. No transformation. Just gone. You stand there a while, watching the space where they've been. Thistle wanders up, sniffs the air, then sits beside you. You kneel and scratch behind his ears. Well, you mutter, guess the family's checking in. Back at the pasture, the sheep are uneventful, mercifully. Myrtle seems unaware the gods might be weighing your existence. Bubo is trying to woo a fence post again. Dagger? Still glowing faintly. Still smug. You don't tell Admetus. Not yet. You're not ready for his reaction. Not sure whether he'd offer to build a second shrine or tell you to wear a disguise. Instead, that night, you climb the hill alone. No sheep. No thistle. Just you and the stars. You sit by the shrine. Light the candle. I don't want power, you whisper into the night. Not the way I used to. The wind stirs. The flame dances. I just want to matter. The right way. No divine voices answer. No visions. Just the hum of the hills and the quiet knowledge that someone, somewhere, is listening. Possibly with lightning. Possibly with understanding. But either way, you're not invisible anymore. You've taken to sleeping in the field. Not every night, just the ones where the moon is full and your cot creaks like a shipwreck and Myrtle won't stop bleating about owls that don't exist. You lay out a wool blanket between two trees, stretch beneath the stars, and let the slow breathing of the flock lull you to sleep. It's nice. Earthy. A little damp. But nice. Tonight, though, sleep doesn't come easy. Your body's tired, aching, even, but your mind runs like Hermes with a secret. You keep hearing that conversation, the words of the cloaked observers echoing beneath your ribs. You remind Olympus why they punished you. What did they expect you to learn, exactly? That mortals struggle? That sheep stink? That humility itches? You already knew those things. You just didn't feel them. Not until now. You roll onto your side, gaze up at the stars. You've named most of them. Some after myths, some after lovers. One, just one, you once named after your own reflection. Narcissism with extra steps. Funny. None of them shine quite as brightly now. The stars have stopped applauding. But the silence? That's not loneliness anymore. It's space. Space to listen. Around you, the sheep snore softly. Thistle twitches in his dreams. Somewhere near the olive grove, a night bird calls. The earth breathes beneath you, warm and slow. And somewhere out there, you imagine, Olympus watches. Well, let them. You're not hiding. You wake to dew on your face and myrtle chewing your blanket. So, business as usual. You trudge to the shed, check the feed bin, toss Daphne a sleepy wave, and spend the next 3 hours convincing Dagger not to intimidate the younger sheep with his haunted ram impression. Then something odd happens. The sheep start forming a circle. Not perfectly. Not evenly. But definitely a pattern. You blink. Rub your eyes. Look again. Yep. They're circling. It's not feeding time. Not storm weather. No predators nearby. Just the sheep. Slowly arranging themselves around Dagger, who's now standing like some woolly oracle mid-sermon. You look at Daphne. She shrugs. That's not normal. Nope. The circle tightens. Then stops. Silence. Dagger turns. Faces you. You take a step forward. And that's when you hear it. A hum. Faint. Not quite music, not quite wind. More like a resonance. A vibration deep beneath your feet, pulsing in rhythm with your breath. You freeze. Dagger takes a slow, deliberate step toward you. His fleece glows again, but brighter. Not gold now. White. Blinding. The other sheep stay perfectly still. You stare. And then it clicks. This isn't Dagger. Or not just Dagger. This is the fleece. Or what's left of it. A fragment. A sliver of that mythical artifact you once thought was just a story. The golden fleece wasn't used up, like mortals assumed. It was returned to the earth. Hidden. Reborn. And it found its way to you. Not because you're Apollo, but because you've been living like Phrixus. Like Jason. Like any mortal desperate to survive the storm. Historians still argue whether the golden fleece was ever more than a symbol, whether it held real power, or simply offered mortals a metaphor to chase. But here, now, with the sheep forming a ring and the fleece pulsing beneath your palm, the line between legend and lamb blurs. You kneel. Place your hand gently on Dagger's back. The hum deepens. Slows. Matches your heartbeat. And you see something. Not a vision exactly. More a memory. But not yours. Mountains. A chase. A boy gripping wool with both hands. The sky roaring. A promise whispered into fleece, take him far and bring him home. You blink. And you're back in the pasture. Dagger snorts and walks away like nothing happened. The circle breaks. The sheep return to grazing. Myrtle finds a rock to climb for no reason. All is, bizarrely, normal. Except you. You're not shaken. You're steady. Something's shifted. You spend the rest of the day walking the perimeter, humming that low tune again. Not for the sheep. Not even for yourself. For the land. For whatever's listening. That evening, Daphne joins you by the shrine. You don't say anything. She just hands you a bit of bread and sits beside you. Both of you watching the sun dip beneath the hills, the light catching on the statue's rough face, on the crook in your hand, on the place where a sheep, just slightly too big for proportion, waits forever by your side. And then she says, quietly, you know something's coming, right? You nod. Yeah. I think I do. She doesn't press. You eat in silence. That night, as you drift into sleep, the dreams come again. But this time, the ram doesn't float. It walks beside you. Steady. Grounded. Glowing faintly with something not quite divine, but something better. Something true. The dream shifts. You're no longer standing beside the ram. You're walking through a golden field that stretches farther than mortal eyes were ever meant to see. Every stalk of wheat hums softly, like harp strings. The wind carries voices, not words, just the warm tone of language forgotten but somehow still understood. The path beneath your feet is ancient. Not carved by time or wheels, but worn smooth by devotion. At the center of the field stands a stone altar. Weathered. Cracked. And on it lies something impossible. Your lyre. But not the one you play now. Not the one you clumsily repaired with twine after Myrtle sat on it. This one glows. Pure. Whole. Each string suspended in perfect tension. Your name is carved into the wood, but not in Greek. Not in any language known. Just symbols, celestial, strange, and yet, yours. You reach for it, but before your fingers touch the wood, the dream dissolves like smoke. You jolt awake. Still in the field. Stars overhead. Thistle curled up beside you, drooling slightly on your sleeve. And across the grass, near the shrine, you see light. But not firelight. Something colder. Sharper. You sit up. Heart pounding. Two figures again. Not cloaked this time. Not hiding. They stand before the shrine, one hand each resting on its stone base. The statue, your statue, glows faintly in their presence. You recognize the one on the right. Athena. And if Athena is here, the other is almost certainly Artemis. Your twin sister. Wonderful. You walk toward them slowly, deliberately. The sheep are dead silent. Even Myrtle. Even Bubo. Athena turns as you approach. Her gaze is cool, calculating, less warlike now, more disappointed int. Artemis doesn't turn. Just stares at the statue like it insulted her. Morning, you say casually, though your throat's dry. If you're here to check the shrine, I can offer you some very lopsided wool braids and 2 moldy apples. Athena raises a brow. You're making light of something serious. That's my thing. Right after singing and sheep herding. Artemis finally turns. Her eyes are dark, unreadable. You've built a cult, she says flatly. You blink. I haven't built anything. A few locals got sentimental after I helped them survive a thunderstorm and a plague of oddly persistent locusts. Athena crosses her arms. You allowed worship. You sigh. I allowed gratitude. Should I have slapped the bread from their hands? Shouted, no praise allowed, I'm being punished. They don't answer. And so, you step closer. Let me guess, you say. You're here to drag me back. Tell me I've failed. Say I've broken the rules. Artemis meets your eyes. We're here to give you a choice. That catches you off guard. Athena nods. You fulfilled the sentence. You've lived among mortals. Learned humility. Worked. And suffered, you add. And adapted, Artemis says. More than we expected. They exchange a glance. A silent, celestial conversation passing between them. Athena speaks again. You may return to Olympus, if you wish. Your place awaits. And if I don't wish? They're quiet. You look past them at the statue. The awkward robe. The tired eyes. The sheep standing loyally at your side. I'm not who I was when I came here, you say. We know, Artemis replies. I don't think Olympus fits me anymore. Athena tilts her head. Then what does? You look out over the hills. At the trees. The sheep. The little habits. The moments no one writes poems about. This, you say quietly. The rhythm. The small things. Silence stretches between you. Athena's voice is gentle when she speaks again. Most gods would choose power. Most gods haven't smelled what I've smelled. That earns you the faintest smile. Artemis steps forward. Her expression softens, just slightly. You're not forsaking us? You shake your head. I'm just not done here. They nod. Athena steps back. The door remains open. For now. Don't let Zeus design the hinges, you mutter. He gilds everything. And just like that, they vanish. No fanfare. No thunder. Just a rush of cool air and silence. You sit down beside the shrine, your knees touching the base. Choice. They gave you a choice. You stay there for a long time. Until the sky brightens. Until Thistle wakes and stretches and nudges your hand for a scratch. Until the sheep begin to stir and the world resumes its quiet spin. Later that day, you walk with Admetus to the river. He tells you about new fences, new markets, new songs the villagers are humming. You nod, half listening, fully present. The gods came last night. And you told them no. Not in anger. Not in rebellion. In peace. Not many gods get that kind of moment. The opportunity to step down, not fall, not be cast out, but choose humility. Choose the ordinary. You still don't know what that makes you. But for now, it makes you happy. You don't tell anyone the gods visited. Partly because Daphne would demand to know exactly what Artemis smelled like. Was it more pine or more celestial judgment? And partly because Myron might try to build a commemorative rock pile. But mostly, you don't say anything because it doesn't feel like it belongs to the world of spoken things. It was quiet. It was sacred. And it was yours. Instead, life resumes. Morning feedings. Fence checks. Midday naps in patches of sunlight that seem almost suspiciously well placed. But beneath it all, beneath the rhythms, you feel something stirring. It starts small. A visitor here, a stranger there. People come to the valley looking for something. Some claim they're just passing through. Others say they heard about a strange song that makes fields bloom. One woman insists a sheep appeared in her dream, glowing and saying, "Follow the fleece." You try not to take that personally. At first, you chalk it up to rumors. Gossip. The usual mortal tendency to make gods out of anything that glows. But then the dreams return. Not for you, for them. One visitor, a grizzled fisherman, dreams of a golden path leading to a silver spring. He finds it, days later, near the edge of your field. A child sees a lyre made of wind. The next morning, she hums a tune that stops Myrtle dead in her tracks, and Myrtle never stops. Something's happening. You find yourself keeping a journal again. Not for prophecy. Not for art. Just to make sense of what you're witnessing. The sheep are responding to music more precisely. Even Bubo. Especially Dagger, whose wool now flickers with light when certain melodies are played. The land feels aware. Not in a spooky, the trees are watching kind of way. More like the fields are listening now. Waiting. Historians still argue whether sacred spaces were born from divine presence or human belief, that is, did the gods make a place holy, or did people simply believe so hard it became true? You're beginning to think it's both. The shrine is visited daily now. Offerings change. Someone leaves a carved flute. Someone else ties a bundle of herbs to the base of the statue and whispers a prayer for a friend's sick child. None of it feels grand. But it matters. You never preach. You never ask for devotion. But people keep coming. And the oddest part? They're not asking for miracles. They're asking for rhythm. For songs to plant seeds by. For courage to walk home through a storm. For a God who understands what it's like to fall and keep walking anyway. You give what you can. A tune here. A quiet word there. You patch a broken lyre for a boy who lost his father. You teach a girl how to play a scale that calms goats. You hum to the field and watch wildflowers bloom just a little too early. You don't wear your divinity like a crown anymore. It's a coat now. Worn. Useful. Familiar. One day, you catch Admetus watching you from the orchard. He smiles, tilts his head. So, you're staying. It's not a question. You nod. I am. He doesn't ask for details. Doesn't ask about the dreams, or the shrine, or the faint golden ring that sometimes forms in the grass when Dagger sits too long in one spot. Instead, he offers you half an apple and says, they're going to start calling you something else soon. You arch a brow. Like what? Not just Apollo the god, he says. But Apollo the shepherd. Maybe even Apollo the still. You snort. That's ominous. Sounds like I've been turned into a statue. Or an idea, he says, shrugging. One that doesn't need thunder. You chew the apple slowly. You don't hate it. That night, you walk the field alone. The sheep are asleep. Even Myrtle. The stars burn steady above you. You hum. It's not the old songs. Not the divine ones. It's something new. Something that sounds like wind through wheat and laughter in the dark and the soft click of hooves on stone. The earth listens. You close your eyes and play a few soft notes on your lyre. And for just a moment, just one, the world hums back. The summer rolls in thick and slow, like honey down an old wooden spoon. Heat shimmers across the pasture. The olive trees glisten with sap. Even Myrtle stops running everywhere like her tail's on fire, choosing instead to nap in the shade with her head on a rock like it's a pillow made for gods. You've learned to embrace the slowness. You rise early, before the sun scorches the ground, and check the sheep. They're clustered together under the biggest fig tree, chewing lazily and blinking at you like, "What do you want?" Mostly, you just hum to them. It's a morning ritual now. 3 notes, always the same. Just enough to start the rhythm. Not magical. Not divine. Just yours. They seem to like it. Even Dagger occasionally flicks his ear in something resembling approval. Later, in the midday heat, you sit with Thistle under the cypress trees and scribble notes in the journal you swore you wouldn't keep. Old habits die softly. You've taken to documenting the small things. What herbs grow best in shade? What tunes make the sheep move clockwise? Which weather patterns arrive when Bubo sneezes more than twice before breakfast? It's all part of the rhythm now. But today, something odd shifts the pattern. A girl arrives. Young, maybe 10? Her sandals are dusty, her cloak too big. She carries a woven basket and a look of quiet determination. You see her from across the field and walk down the hill, Thistle trotting beside you like a furry diplomat. She doesn't look startled when she sees you. In fact, she says, "I dreamed you'd be here." You blink. Oh, was I majestic, or covered in sheep drool? She cracks a tiny smile. Both. You like her immediately. She introduces herself as Eleni, and she's from a village 2 days north. Her mother's been sick. No healer can figure out what's wrong. But Eleni dreamed of a shepherd with golden eyes and a song that pulled pain out of the body like thread from cloth. You're not sure whether to laugh or panic. Instead, you kneel and say, "Tell me everything." She does. You listen. And then, God's help you, you hum. It's instinctive now. Low. Gentle. A melody that weaves comfort into the air like warm wool. You don't try to make it powerful. You don't call on Olympus. You just offer the rhythm of the land, the steady beat of hooves, the whisper of water over stones. She listens. Eyes closed. When the song ends, she opens them and nods. "I think that'll help," she says. Even if it doesn't, you say, "Take this." You hand her a sprig of thyme and a small braid of wool, daggers, no less, though you don't tell her that. She hugs you. Tight. The kind of hug that doesn't ask for miracles. Just presence. She leaves before nightfall, basket full of ordinary things that might turn out to be extraordinary. You sit on the edge of the field long after she's gone. Daphne joins you, gnawing on an almond. "So now you're doing healing again?" You shrug. Sort of. Quietly. You know that word's going to spread, right? I know. She tosses an almond at your head. Just make sure we don't get overrun with pilgrims asking you to bless their barley or remove cursed hiccups. You laugh. No promises. That night, you dream again. But this time, it's not stars or sheep or divine warnings. It's Eleni. She stands in her home, singing softly. And her mother, pale and tired but smiling, reaches for her hand. You wake with a full heart and damp eyes. No thunder. No applause. Just the steady, invisible thread of a song that made someone feel a little less alone. Historians rarely record these kinds of miracles. There's no epic about the god who sat in the dust and hummed to a frightened child. But maybe there should be. Because in that quiet, in that rhythm, you found something Olympus never taught you. Not power, not prestige, but presence. And it is enough. A strange thing begins to happen as the days slide by. You stop counting. Not the sheep, they still need counting, especially Myrtle, who disappears regularly and once returned wearing a wreath of wildflowers like she'd just gotten married in a secret forest cult. No, you stop counting the days. The weeks. The months since Olympus cast you down like an inconvenient thunderbolt. Time, once sharp and divine, has softened into rhythm. Wake. Tend. Hum. Listen. Repeat. But today, a letter arrives. Not a scroll. Not divine parchment edged in ambrosia or sealed with thunderbolts. Just a rough bit of paper tucked beneath a clay jar of honey and a loaf of fresh bread. No signature. You read it on the hilltop as the sheep graze below. He still watches. They all do. But some of us are beginning to understand. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it hums. Stay where you are. Keep tending. You're making something they forgot how to see. You read it twice. Then you fold it up and tuck it in your coat pocket next to a bit of dagger's wool and a carved acorn Myron gave you for protection against too much responsibility. You look out at the field, and for a moment, it glows. Not with light. With meaning. Later, you hum a new song to the sheep. It's a winding tune, unpredictable. The rhythm stutters, then gallops, then softens into something like breath. The sheep follow it, like always. But today, you feel different. Lighter. The shrine has changed again, too. Someone left a wooden carving of you, again, but now you're sitting, one hand on a sheep's back, head bowed like you're listening to something deep in the soil. And they carved something new into the base. Just one word, stillness. It shouldn't make your throat tighten, but it does. You were born of light, of music, of prophecy. But stillness? That's something you earned. You pass Myron later, trimming grapevines. He nods solemnly. Heard Myrtle tried to kiss a statue again. She does that. I also heard someone saw your eyes glowing when you sang last night. You smirk. You believe that? He shrugs. I've seen weirder. Once caught Dagger trying to meditate. Back at your hut, Thistle is chewing on one of your old sandals. You let him. You have others. That night, you sit by the fire with Daphne. No grand conversation. Just a few jokes. A shared bowl of roasted figs. The comfort of knowing someone's beside you who won't ask you to be more than here. You pluck the lyre. The strings are loose, imperfect. So are you. But the sound it makes? It's real. Somewhere beyond the hills, you feel Olympus, distant, weightless. They haven't forgotten you. But you, maybe, have forgiven them. Because in this valley, among muddy sheep and stubborn rams and kids who ask you if the stars taste like honey, they don't, you found something the temples never held. Enough. Not more. Not less. Just enough. And when you sleep, your dreams are calm. No riddles. No visions. Just the sound of hooves moving in rhythm. A heartbeat in the grass. A melody made of footsteps, bleats, breath. You no longer fear what comes next. You'll meet it in the field. Crook in hand. Maybe humming. Maybe not. But always present. You don't notice the wind at first. It moves in soft ripples, brushing through the tall grass like someone smoothing a bedsheet. The sheep don't flinch. Dagger just blinks, as if to say, "You'll want to see this," then returns to chewing something that may or may not be part of your cloak. The wind carries a scent, amber, crushed laurel, and something metallic and warm. Familiar. You've smelled it before. Divine presence. But not intrusive. This isn't the kind of wind that comes before Zeus throws a tantrum or Hera performs a cosmic audit. This is quieter. Sadder. The kind that asks permission before arriving. You're walking the path near the olive trees when you see her. Leto. Your mother. She's not glowing. Not floating. Not surrounded by celestial choruses. Just sitting on the old stone fence, ankles crossed, hair in its usual controlled chaos of curls, as if she'd been here the whole time. You stop. You haven't seen her since the exile. You don't move closer yet. Neither does she. I had to see for myself, she says finally, voice low. They said you changed. You shrug. I changed my sandals. Also my entire worldview. A pause. Then, they weren't sure if you want to see me. You glance at the sheep. At the fields. At your hands, calloused, flecked with mud and bits of wool. I wasn't sure if I should, you admit. Leto nods. You were angry, she says. I still am. Sometimes. And proud? You meet her eyes. Yes. But not in the same way. She smiles faintly. They're still arguing about you. Historians or gods? Both. You laugh, surprised by how light it feels. She gestures toward the valley. You've made something here. You nod. Something real. They want you back. I know. But you haven't decided yet. No, you say quietly. Because I'm not done listening. Leto studies you. Then she hops down from the wall with the grace of someone who once outran every storm Olympus threw her way. She walks beside you in silence for a while. You point out the fields, name every sheep, including Myrtle's newest lamb, small problem, and hum your morning tune. Leto listens. And when she leaves, it's with no fanfare. Just a hug that smells like sunlight and memory, and a whisper, you always had more than prophecy in you. You return to your flock. That evening, the villagers bring food. A sort of unofficial feast, complete with honeyed figs, awkward dancing, and Myron attempting to play your lyre upside down. No one calls it a celebration. But it is. You sit by the fire, sheep napping nearby, and watch the stars rise. You've stopped naming them. Not because you don't love them, but because now, you know, they're just one part of the sky. And here? Here, you're part of the soil. The people don't worship you loudly. They don't build temples taller than trees. But they hum your songs. They braid their hopes into wool. They name their children after music, not fear. And that's better. That's real. That's enough. You rise quietly, walk the pasture one last time. The grass sighs beneath your feet. Dagger follows for a few steps, then flops over with a grunt of exaggerated effort. You reach the shrine. The statue is worn now. The paint faded. The sheep by your side chipped just a little at the nose. But the candle still burns. You light a new one. And for a moment, brief, soft, and real, you let yourself hope that the gods are watching not to judge, but to learn. The wind returns. Not to summon. Not to warn. Just to sing. And you? You sing back. The sky grows soft now. The stars above begin to blur at the edges, like brushstrokes melting into the horizon. The grass quiets beneath your feet, as if settling down for sleep. You sit in the field one last time, the sheep clustered nearby, the air thick with the hush that only comes at the end of long, gentle days. Thistle breathes slow beside you. Myrtle sighs, curled in a heap of her own legs. Even Dagger, sentinel of all things strange and woolly, lowers his head and closes his eyes. Your crook rests across your knees, warm from the day. You run your fingers over the wood, feeling every nick, every ridge, a map of small moments, of mornings in mist and evenings in gold. In the distance, someone plays a soft melody. A flute, maybe. Or wind through hollow reeds. It doesn't matter. The sound folds into the night like a lullaby written by the earth itself. You lean back. Close your eyes. And let the rhythm carry you. There's nothing to chase now. No temples to build. No storms to flee. Only the beat of the world, steady and slow, like a heart at rest. And you, Apollo, not god of war or wrath, not chariot rider or plague bringer, just Apollo the shepherd, breathe in time with it. Still. Present. Enough. Let that be your story, now. Let it end in stillness. Let it end in peace. Let sleep take you. Softly. Fully. Now.